Hello and welcome back to the Movie Soup channel. Today I would like to review the Apple TV Plus subscription service, compare it to some other streaming options on the market and briefly cover some of its original content, namely the Ted Lasso, the Severance and the Greyhound movie. I would like to preface this video by saying that this is not a review of all video streaming services. I will be mentioning some of the most common ones for the purposes of value comparison only, but the list is by no means exhaustive, and I won't be covering the intricacies of those other streaming options. So, Apple TV Plus is a bit of a unique streaming service as it doesn't strive to license any of the existing media to create a vast library of content, but rather uses Apple's very deep pockets to create an exclusive library of its own original content. At the time of this review, there are a few dozen series and a couple dozen movies, so when you look for something to watch, you won't browse for hours in search for the right watch, like you can on Netflix, for example. With Apple TV Plus, you have a concise list of available media which you either resonate with or you don't. This also means that while with some other services like Netflix or Prime Video or Disney Plus, they have tons and tons of options in an effort to give you exactly what you want to watch. While with Apple TV Plus, the approach is more like, here is a spectacular series or a movie we created and you will watch it. So it's not so much a service trying to cater for any viewing need you might have, but rather a service that tells you what you want to watch. This approach gets somewhat offset by the price of Apple TV Plus. For example, here in Canada, Apple TV Plus is $5.99, and for comparison, Disney Plus is $11.99. Netflix ranges between $9.99 and $19.99, and Prime Video comes included with the Amazon Prime subscription, and out here that's $9.99. And $5.99 for Apple TV Plus alone isn't a very good deal in my opinion. You see, I believe that a subscription only makes sense when you benefit from whatever it is you subscribe to, either frequently or if there are good loyalty bonuses. It can be an ongoing show you are into that releases new episodes weekly for months and months. Or it can be a very vast library where you find something worth watching a couple times a week. Or it can be some sort of a point system where each month you earn more points towards some rewards. So in most cases it boils down to a variety and volume of licensed content. And it can vary from country to country, but still, Netflix, Disney and Prime are the big three, and have a vast selection of media to choose from. But for Apple TV Plus, that's not the case. The library is very small, as it purely consists of the originals, and Apple seems to be intent on creating what they believe is a high-quality content, and that takes time. They also seem to want to diversify their content across all sorts of genres and ages. So it's not very likely that someone who likes the Mythic Quest will like Dr. Brain, or someone who enjoys the Severance will also enjoy the Snoopy Show. And if you like any given one or two series, you might subscribe to the service and be done with them within like a month or two at most. And there are very few series that have the power to draw subscribers on their own to this service. I think there are only two: Ted Lasso and The Severance, and one movie, Greyhound. All three are impeccably executed and quite short, Lasso with 2 seasons and Severance with 1. Looking at more niche streaming services like the Paramount Plus or Shudder or AMC Plus, they are priced at $5.99, $4.99 and $8.99 respectively. All of these services not only offer libraries of licensed content, but they also deliver originals, not much of which is arguably good, but still. Shudder, for example, is a paradise land for horror addicts. with a library of classics and some surprisingly decent originals and exclusives. AMC Plus not only gives you its own licensed content, but also includes the Shudder. With all this in mind, I don't think Apple TV Plus is worth it at $5.99 a month as a standalone subscription, but if you are heavily involved with Apple's ecosystem, getting it as part of Apple One isn't too bad after all. I would like to see some of its more popular shows and movies offered on iTunes as standalone rentals or purchases. It would probably make more financial sense for Apple as well, until such time as when their original library grows enough so that one cannot consume all the hit shows and movies at a reasonable pace within just 1 or 2 months. Now let's have a closer look at the content that Apple TV offers. First, The Severance, a show that I and many others found to be quite interesting. The idea and the execution were quite engaging at first. The overall style, however, did become a bit tiresome towards the end of the first season. The cold and dark setting was at first enticing, but then I found it a bit monotonous, I guess. But I think the show has another season in it to bring the story to some logical conclusion. I don't think The Severance has so far set itself up to expand beyond the particular story of the current protagonists. It is certainly worth checking out, and it might provoke some entertaining conversations with your friends and colleagues. Depending on how the second season plays out, I might have a separate video on The Severance alone. And the other very good show residing exclusively on Apple TV Plus is Ted Lasso, which most definitely warrants its own separate video. But in short, the series is quite good. I found it very refreshing and melting my cold heart. It is somewhat a perfect combination of comedy and drama. It's only 2 seasons, but each episode is about 50-minute long and usually has a pretty good idea it strives to deliver. I was also quite surprised with how well it is written. For example, it supports the message, but it does so in a manner that complements the main plot and does not seem to be forced or out of place. The show is also very idealistic, a happy place-like, as it depicts quite a carefree, privileged life. So while many might find the characters and their struggles quite relatable, very few can relate to the kind of life depicted in the show. But still, this is such a sweet and positive show, and it's so well made that you pretty much can't help enjoying it. Though each episode is almost an hour long, and at the moment there are 2 full seasons, this show is a very easy watch. I, for example, watched it twice, back to back. So give Ted Lasso a try and watch out for my video covering this series. Now back to Apple TV Plus as a service. Upon my second Ted Lasso watch-through completion, I figured I would give some other original series a try, and I decided to check out For All Mankind. And let me tell you, as good as Ted Lasso is, For All Mankind is equally as bad. The showrunners took a wonderful idea. How would the world have looked if USSR had won the space race? A perfect premise, limitless possibilities, a treasure trove for dystopian, alternative history, sci-fi exploration. You would think a show with a premise like this would be some absolute sci-fi madness, with a setting that twists our real world, a fair bit of space exploration, wonky graphics, hell, maybe even some steampunk goodness. And what does this show actually give you? Well, it's about 45% of individual identity crisis, 50% of diversity push, 2% of credits and titles, and 3% of some dogshit action. Joel Kinnaman's face always looks like he smelled some dirty socks or school bully spoiled his day. Other key characters have very poorly defined motivations and very little logic to their actions. The show seems to employ creative liberties based off its premise whenever it feels like doing so, but then fails to remain consistent most of the time. If you want to reimagine the world's evolution based on a major event unfolding differently from how it did in real life, you have to commit to your new idea. The little things in your newly created world have to be affected. That's what makes it interesting and believable. Otherwise, you end up having a world as we know it, but a major change affecting only select items or aspects of it. And also, if the point of this show was to depict the journey of women to go to space, why not choosing real events instead? The real history is quite rich and leaves a lot of freedom for creative interpretation. Or why not creating your own fictional story in a setting very similar to real world? I guess I personally have a problem with how good the show's premise is and how poorly it is executed. I expected weaponized shuttles and satellites, tanks on the moon and whatnot. Don't waste your time on this shit. And the only decent movie on Apple TV Plus is Greyhound. Tom Hanks' stellar acting with a captivating war story in a concise 1.5-hour package. And that's pretty much it. Looking at the Apple TV Plus in general, it seems to me that there is a preference of form over function. Ted Lasso is an easy watch, with a premise that is universally relatable, which makes it a safe bet that only required the creators to not mess it up too much, and so far they haven't. The Severance is quite an enclosed setting focusing on the office culture, so it easily resonates with the middle class, and by not expanding its universe, it also remains manageable. While Greyhound was always a safe bet, I mean, taking a war story with Tom Hanks as a battleship captain is going to be a win 99% of the time, unless you got absolutely no idea how to produce a movie. And for the rest of the content on Apple TV Plus, well, the good visuals and pleasant presentation are nice, but they can only take you so far. Good, relatable, and sustainable stories are what drives retention and builds a devoted audience. Apple clearly isn't trying to make money yet with Apple TV Plus, and I think they need to look into establishing some big and long-running couple of shows to create that following. I don't know what they have in works, but history shows that sitcoms do that pretty well. But if they keep going in the same direction as they are now, I don't think this service has a long and prosperous future ahead of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Share your opinion about Apple TV Plus or any of the shows discussed in the video below, and drop a like while you're at it. It means the world to me. But for now, a goodbye.